Good day. My name is Terry Difazio. This is my partner and co-host, the incredible Todd Pronto, and you're watching Soundcheck on NEK-TV. Well, Todd, today we have a great show for our viewers, our viewer out there.
Our viewer?
One viewer, yes.
Oh, one of them.
And this...
You will be not disappointed.
We've received many letters about this. We're going to be talking today about controversial band member replacements. Mm-hmm. And there have been quite a few of them, and I thought we'd spice it up just a little bit by putting them into the categories of the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay.
And we might even, I think we might even throw in one called the confusing. But
confusing?
Yeah.
Is that like where Boy George is?
That's the end of our show, folks.
Thank you for tuning in, viewer.
We'd like to say how much fun it was, but you know, Boy George, that's the end of it.
And we're canceled.
We're canceled. Our one viewer just dumped out on us. I have a list of a few here. Cool. Some of which I know nobody's ever heard of, but you know,
educate them.
I know that you've got a bunch, also that I have or haven't heard of.
Possibly.
I know for sure.
Possibly.
I want to start out with a big one right off. One of the more controversial ones. Of course, I don't know how many people out there have heard of Deep Purple.
Absolutely.
Maybe 3 or 4 people. Okay.
At least 12.
Yeah. Well, back in I think it was 1969. They replaced Rod Evans and Nicky Simper with Ian Gillan and Roger Glover.
Yep.
In my opinion, that was good.
I think Ian has a great voice.
Yeah.
I didn't realize who sang before him.
Rod Evans.
Oh, I guess I never realized.
Yeah, if you listen to the first 2 Deep Purple albums, you'd hear songs like Hush and Kentucky Woman, which they didn't even write.
Right.
But if you heard those 2, and those were sort of hits that they did, you could definitely hear the difference, because when the 3rd album came out, or the 4th album, I can't remember which one it was. I think it was their 4th album, was called Deep Purple in Rock.
Yep.
As soon as you heard the first cut on Deep Purple in Rock, Speed King, you said, yep, something's different about this band.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I remember Ian Gillan or Gillian? Gillan?
Gillan, yeah.
He was in Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yes, he was.
Was he Jesus or Judas?
Jesus.
He was Jesus.
Yep.
Yes. And he's got a heck of a voice, man. Like, the way Andrew Lloyd Webber wrote that series, to be either Jesus or Judas, you had to have a heck of a range.
Mm-hmm. Not to be mistaken with Judas Priest. That's another.
That's a whole different group. That would have made that quite the play, though, wouldn't it have?
Judas Priest Superstar?
Yeah, Judas Priest Superstar.
We'll get to them. They're later on in our shoe, by the way.
They're later in the shoe.
Yes, that was another controversial bit, too. And then I'd put that in the good category, because I thought that Gillan and Glover were far, far, far better.
Oh, yeah.
And that quintet, that lineup, really launched them. Huge, huge, huge success.
Yep.
As we all know, they didn't achieve huge success until they did Smoke on the Water, but I personally like their other stuff better.
Anybody can play that on guitar.
Except me.
I could teach it to you right now, though.
Probably could.
It's real easy.
The drums were probably more complicated.
Oh, yeah. That's like the super easy guitar riff. That's like one of those things where, like, if somebody's learning the guitar and you want them to come away with the satisfaction that they can play something, you just teach them that right off, because it's super easy. However, I'm probably like 85% of the other guitarists out there. That's the only part of the song I know. I don't know any more of that song, like how to play it. I'm sure it's not hard, but it's just that one riff.
So moving right along, though, we're not done with Deep Purple. Deep Purple is I'm not even going to get into the modern Deep Purple and all those lineup changes, but in 1974, Ian Gillan and Roger Glover leave. They're fired by Ritchie Blackmore. and they're replaced by David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes.
I guess I wasn't aware.
They made the album Burn, and then they did the album Stormbringer. And if you want to put them in the category of the good, the bad, or the ugly, I don't know. It was sort of like a move sideways. They weren't better, but they weren't worse.
Huh.
They were just different, very different. If you listen to the stuff from Burn and Stormbringer, it was good. It just wasn't the same.
It wasn't the same.
It wasn't the same. It was, a whole different. Stylistically, it was different.
Huh. Well, they can't all be winners.
No.
Now, those guys left on their own accord, though.
Well, it was funny. It's funny.
They left in a Honda Accord, right?
Yeah. To tell you the truth, though, this is the truth.
Okay.
Richie Blackmore fired himself.
Fired himself?
Yep. He started a band called Rainbow.
Oh, yeah.
Which is another whole tangent that'll take at least 4 or 5 hours. But in the short term, Richie Blackmore fired himself and started the band Rainbow. And I'll get to them in a minute.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And he was replaced by, was it Tommy Bolin?
Not sure.
Tommy Bolin replaced him on guitar, and he was dead about one album later from massive drug overdose of something or other. Huh. I don't even think he was 29. Or 26 or something like that. Yeah, that was a accident waiting to happen. And
now, Richie Blackmore is one of my brothers, right? He plays left-handed guitar.
No.
He doesn't?
No.
I thought he did.
No, Jimi Hendrix. That's your brother.
Well, yeah, but I thought Richie Blackmore... Oh, no, I'm thinking of the guy from... oh, man. Where did my brain go? Black Sabbath.
Tony Iommi.
Yeah, he's a left-handed guitarist.
Yes, Tony Iommi.
How do you confuse Black Sabbath with Deep Purple?
Well, that's another story we'll get to. It also, that's later. That's later on in our shoe.
I keep jumping ahead, man.
But yeah, those two bands sort of did something not collaboratively, but personnel-wise, they mixed and matched, and we'll get to them in a while. But, yeah, Richie Blackmore took off and started Rainbow.
Yeah.
And what was even funnier about Rainbow underwent so many lineup changes it would take me 4 hours to go through them all.
LeVar Burton?
Yeah, LeVar Burton.
Oh, that was Reading Rainbow.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
I was close.
Essentially, Richie Blackmore wanted to start a band with Ronnie James Dio.
Yep.
And Ronnie James Dio said, I'm in this band called Elf. Elf is like my family. And Ronnie James Dio played bass guitar and sang.
Yeah.
And he said, I can't just leave them. They're like family. So Richie Blackmore said, okay, I'll envelop this whole band for one album. Then he fired everybody except Ronnie James Dio and replaced him with Cozy Powell, Tony Carey, and, I can't think of Jimmy Bain. He replaced all three of them one album later.
Rainbow became Elf and Richie Blackmore?
Yeah.
Until he restructured and made them all leave in their Honda Accords?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he absorbed the whole band, released one album just to make Ronnie James Dio happy, then fired them all and replaced them.
Did they tour?
I don't know if the original one toured or not, because they never released an album with the Elf lineup. The first live album I heard with that lineup was with Cozy Powell and Tony Carey and Jimmy Bain, and that was, in my opinion, that lineup change was good.
Yeah.
They were so much better than what Elf was. But that I didn't realize that until about 2 years ago. I realized why did he just have these guys and then just get rid of them all? But that's what happened.
It's tough.
And then after that, Rainbow underwent so many changes. People just got disinterested in Rainbow. There were just too many lineup changes. You needed a scorecard to keep track of them all.
Well, when you get to the point of the band not even like Leonard Skinner at this point,
yep.
I mean, is it one original member?
Could be, yeah.
That's not really going to see Leonard Skinner at that point. It's like going to see a tribute band.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with you. As a matter of fact, many years ago there was a Blood, Sweat, and Tears used to tour. Mm-hmm. They had one guy that everyone thought was from the original lineup with David Clayton Thomas, and he wasn't even the original singer.
Oh, really?
Al Cooper was.
Oh, that's
Al Cooper with Mike Bloomfield from Super Sessions. Yep. Anyways, So much for that. We've used up an hour and a half of your time talking about one band.
What about one band?
Your turn, Todd. You tell me of a band and a lineup change that was controversial.
Well, this one, I don't know if it's controversial. To me, it is, and it's fairly recent. Of course, Freddie Mercury died in 91?
No, later than that. I'm not sure when it was. Sometime in the 90s, though. You're right.
Yeah, and so Queen was no more,
right?
Obviously, because how do you replace Freddie Mercury? But they have, and they've done it with Adam Lambert for some certain tours.
Oh. And
Adam Lambert has a great voice, and he's probably one of the few people that can hit the notes that Freddie hit. But to me, and it kind of goes back to what we were saying with Skynyrd, it's not. I mean, even you still have Brian May and the rest of the crew.
Roger Taylor, yeah.
Yeah, it's Queen is not Queen without Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
That would be like the entire Ziggy Stardust, like the Spiders from Mars going on tour without David Bowie. It just doesn't really work.
No, because David Bowie keeps all the spiders at his house.
He does. So, I mean, I don't know if it's controversial. I know I do know that some real diehard Queen fans will never give Adam the time of day, and that's unfortunate because he's good. But maybe they should just tour as Queen featuring Adam Lambert and not just call it Queen. But I don't know. But to give the guy credit, he can hit the notes.
Mm-hmm. So was it a good move, a bad move, or an ugly move?
I think it was a we need to make money move.
Okay.
Because this is just in the last few years that this happened, and Queen hadn't played since before Freddie died.
Yeah.
Because didn't he go solo for a little bit after?
I'm not even sure how that all went down. I know that I have the CD that he made, or some songs off that CD that he made just before he died. By the way, I will tell you this much: who is that guy you're talking about?
Adam Lambert.
He was not the first guy they chose.
He wasn't.
No, they had somebody else touring with them for a short while, and that was Paul Rogers.
Oh yeah.
Bad Company.
Yeah, that's right.
He toured with them for a short while too, and he was good. Paul Rogers is a great singer, but he wasn't Freddie Mercury.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, the Doors never tried to stay the Doors after Jim Morrison died.
I don't know. Didn't they try to replace him?
I don't know if they tried to replace him. I knew they did a few. They took one of his. It's actually kind of a neat album. It's called American Poet, I think.
Oh yeah.
They took a bunch of the poetry that he went in a studio, presumably high off of his rocker, and just read a bunch of poetry, and they put music behind it, and it's actually really, really good. I don't think they ever tried to tour with them, and I could be very wrong, but how do you replace? I think that's probably where you run into the most controversial is when you replace the singer. But then again, the guitar player, I mean, what would AC/DC be without
Angus Young?
Angus Young, yeah.
They might be good.
They might be really good.
Okay.
They might be better.
Here's something. Here's a good one for you guys.
I think Adam Lambert should sing for AC/DC.
It's too bad he's passed away, but a very, very, very good guitar player by the name of Gary Moore.
Yeah.
Imagine Gary Moore in AC/DC.
Well, AC/DC does fundamentally draw from the blues, and Gary Moore was kind of a blues player, I guess.
For some reason, I can't quite fathom AC/DC shredding, but anyways, it would be the Metallica syndrome when they told Les Claypool, "You're too good for us."
Yeah, what are you doing, man? It's true though. I mean, simple riff rock doesn't need too much.
There are two bands. I agree with Todd here. There are two bands that can take simple riffs and make them sound really good. One is AC/DC and one is ZZ Top.
Yeah,
very simple.
Correct.
They make it sound good. They don't play over their heads.
No, I listen when I listen to ZZ Top, especially. Even the drumming is very. I mean,
And
4/4 beat.
Yeah, and to be even funnier, the only guy in the band that doesn't have a beard is named Frank Beard.
Yeah, the drummer.
Who is, by the way, a chain smoker.
Is he really?
Yeah. When I saw them, they lip synced the whole concert that I saw. But anyways,
maybe they had some frogs in their throats.
The next one I've got is this one wasn't a band replacement that wanted to happen. It was a band replacement that needed to happen, and it actually worked out as something good for the band, and that was when Brian Johnson replaced Bon Scott of AC/DC. And that wasn't something that AC/DC wanted. By the way, they replaced AC/DC replaced their original singer, and I don't know his name, with Bon Scott.
Oh, really?
Bon Scott was not actually the original singer, but he was the first one to sing with them actually on records.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I guess you kind of had to replace him, unfortunately. He died...
It's 1979.
Yeah, boy, what?
Alcohol,
not very old.
Alcohol asphyxiation. I don't even think he was 30.
No, I don't think he was either. To me, I'm not. I'll completely go on the record. I've said this many times. I'm not an AC/DC fan by any means. However, I like that era of their stuff a lot better. Brian Johnson, I just do not like him.
No,
he sounds like he needs to take some X-Lax before he goes to sing because he's constipated and it's really bothering him.
I mean, if you're going to screech like that, you should do it like Udo Dirkschneider of Accept. Now that's real screeching.
Right.
Plus, poor Udo looks like a bulldog with blonde hair, so you've got to cut the guy some slack, and he's only 5'2". Poor Udo.
Poor Udo.
I think he's back with them, with Accept.
Maybe.
I think he is. Yeah, I'm not an AC/DC fan either. I like the Bon Scott era better, but there's a couple of songs that Brian Johnson did that I liked a lot, and one of them was Thunderstruck. I thought that was a great riff. Angus Young really pulled that one out of his hat.
Out of his kilt.
Out of his kilt.
He wears a kilt, right?
No, he wears schoolboy shorts.
Oh, that's right.
And
I didn't think he wore a kilt.
And he that riff is good. Thunderstruck is a great riff.
It is a good riff. I always liked, of course, it's Scott singing it, but it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
Yes, that's and that I think he wrote that as a self-portrait.
Yeah, I think he did.
If I'm not mistaken.
That's a great tune. That's the only AC/DC song I'll ever go on record saying I like.
I liked Girls Got Rhythm.
Yeah. I
liked that one. It's a long way at the top. And, it was one of the one I liked way back then. Oh, Dirty Deeds I liked.
Oh, yeah. Dirty Deeds, and they're done. Oh, well, never mind. I was going to sing your version of it, but we probably shouldn't sing that.
Probably not.
It's really bad.
Who's next on your lineup, Todd?
There was a band called Mother Love Bone back in the 90s.
Oh, really?
And Mother Love Bone kind of split up and became parts of Soundgarden and parts of Pearl Jam.
Now, see, you're educating me because I'm not familiar with this one.
Mother Love, oh boy, I can't remember the guy's name. He died anyway of a heroin overdose.
Oh, that's a big surprise here.
Yeah.
Big surprise.
And so it wasn't really controversial, but what kind of happened is there was this new singer in town named Eddie Vedder.
Him I've heard of, yeah.
Yeah, that at the time nobody had really heard of him. He started playing around with Pearl Jam, but they recorded, they made a group called Temple of the Dog.
Now, I heard of them too.
They had a song called Hunger Strike that was a pretty popular song in the 90s. What's interesting about that is it's Eddie Vedder and Chris Cornell from Soundgarden.
Yes, I heard of him too.
Who is kind of like a combination of Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, but basically Mother Love Bone. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is those tapes are recorded, never released, and became popular after Soundgarden and Pearl Jam really hit the big time. But Temple of the Dog was actually done way before.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, but it was interesting because everybody always thought that Chris Cornell and Eddie Vedder kind of didn't like each other because they kind of stole each other's band members, but that's absolutely not the case.
No.
So I guess it's not really controversial, but it's kind of neat to know that Pearl Jam and Soundgarden are actually hybrids of this one group in the 90s that never really got their due. I believe they signed to a major label, but the guy died before they had a chance to do anything with it. But truthfully, they weren't as... I hate to use the word grunge for Soundgarden or Pearl Jam. because I don't feel like they were grunge music. But this group was a lot more 80s rock. Another Love Bone group. But I don't know. I don't really consider most of what people consider grunge music to be grunge music.
Yeah, it was funny. Everybody automatically, when you think of grunge, they say, Nirvana, naturally.
Sure.
But they also lump other bands in there. But I will never forget, though, back in the 90s, there was a VJ. It was a woman, young woman, maybe 19 or 20.
Yeah.
She was an MTV VJ.
Right, a video jock.
Yeah, and she was interviewing Anthrax.
Yeah.
All you Anthrax fans out there, don't cringe. But she asked them, she said to them, how does it feel to be one of the more popular grunge bands? And Scott Ian's goatee dropped 4 inches.
It's already like an 8-inch goatee.
Yeah, it dropped about 4 inches, and they all looked at it like, huh? How do we even answer that? Because we're not a grunge band. Anthrax was never a grunge band. Never.
It's, no. And I think if you listen to Soundgarden, they're much more technical than what grunge music would be.
Yeah.
Like Stone Temple Pilots, I could see that being grunge.
Yeah. I like them, by the way. They were good.
I love the Stone Temple Pilots. Scott Weiland, by the way, there's a kind of a controversial thing. They're trying to replace him in the Stone Temple Pilots like every other year.
No kidding.
Because he's such a train wreck to work with. He's like on and off drugs, like 4 times during, he's in rehab and then out of rehab in the same day. And they started a band called Velvet Revolver.
I heard of them. They had Slash, didn't they?
They had Slash and Scott Weiland, and I feel like there was it the guy from Rage Against the Machine?
Could be.
It might have been.
Yeah.
But that didn't last either because Scott Weiland's such a train wreck, so he'll keep going back to the Stone Temple Pilots, but every time they kick him out, they try to get a new singer, and it doesn't work because of kind of what we were talking about before. But there have been bands that have successfully replaced the lead singer. And I know I can think of one right off the top of my head, but I know it's on your list too. But it's quite the quintessential 80s band, especially if you're a guitar player and you wanted to really learn how to shred. A lot of guitarists emulated this guy.
Eddie Van Halen.
Yes, sir.
And, that was next on my list. One of the more controversial ones was David Lee Roth was replaced by Sammy Hagar.
Yep.
And a lot of people really hated that move. In my opinion, I liked Sammy Hagar much better.
Yeah.
It gave the band personality. And the difference between Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth was one is an alcoholic and one's a drug addict.
Yeah, so I mean, pick your poison, which one do you like better?
Okay, here's...
If he's a coke addict, you probably get more energetic show.
Oh, yeah, that was Roth.
Yeah.
David Lee Roth was all about image.
Right.
He had an image to portray, and he was going to portray his image as to who he thought you should perceive him as being. He was a star. Right. He would look in the camera and he would look at it like, I am cooler than anyone. Yeah. Whereas Sammy Hagar wasn't like that. He was all about personality.
Yeah. His personality
you couldn't be in the same room with Sammy Hagar and not know what his personality was.
Right.
He was very, very verbose, very, very outgoing sort of person. I personally liked Sammy Hagar better.
Mm-hmm.
Many people didn't. I did, and I followed his career before he got into Van Halen.
What did he do before?
I Can't Drive 55.
Oh, I always thought that was after Van Halen.
That was before. That was 1982 or 83.
Interesting.
And he also did VOA, Voice of America, was on the Red Rocker album. Yep.
Oh, see, I guess I just thought that was an offshoot of a solo career that I guess I assumed he got popular because of Van Halen.
No, Van Halen got popular because of him.
Oh, I didn't
That's
realize
what he
thinks. That's what he thinks.
And to prove my point, well, not to prove my point, but just to sort of spin off, David Lee Roth was a coke addict.
Yep.
And Sammy Hagar...
Like Pepsi.
Yeah, he liked Pepsi. He helped rejuvenate and, I would just say, save from bankruptcy a tequila factory in Mexico.
Oh, yeah. Cabo Wabo?
Yeah, Cabo Wabo, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Cabo Wabo, Cabo Wabo, tomato. Let's call the whole thing.
After several drinks of tequila, who can pronounce it? Anyway.
Cabo Wabo.
Yeah, sir. So,
I
anyways,
had conversations like that before.
in the category of the good, the bad, and the ugly, I don't know which one to call this, but in the AC/DC one, I called it the ugly because Brian Johnson's ugly.
He is an ugly guy. He wears that hat.
Yeah.
The chapeau. My grandfather used to call it the chapeau.
Yep.
The like French taxi cab driver hat.
Something like that.
What
Yeah.
that's called?
I don't even know.
Chapeau.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah, Sammy Hagar is still around. He did. As a matter of fact, what's even funnier is David Lee Roth is back in Van Halen. He's feuding again with Eddie Van Halen.
Oh, they're mad already?
Oh, they're mad again because Eddie Van Halen's saying that David wants to do dance tunes and Eddie wants to do rock tunes. And Sammy Hagar was touring with Joe Satriani and
he should be.
what was the other guy's name? Chad Smith.
From the Chili Peppers?
From the Chili Peppers and Michael Anthony from Van Halen. They had a couple albums out with a band called Chickenfoot.
Yep.
Their first album was good. The second one I didn't care for. But, you know, they're back and forth, and they're all getting old, and they should all get over themselves.
Yeah, it's time to do an unplugged concert and just Eddie Van Halen unplugged. Why would Eddie Van Halen want to do dance music?
He doesn't.
No, exactly. But, I mean, what would make David Lee Roth think...
Who knows? Who knows? I suppose enough cocaine will do that to you.
Do you remember David Lee Roth put out an EP?
Yep, it was called
Just a Gigolo?
Yeah.
Ah, yeah.
He did. I have his album after he left Van Halen. I have his album Eat 'Em and Smile.
Yeah.
And David Lee Roth's band was probably one of the most talented bands, but it lacked the real hard edge. He had Steve Vai on guitar. He had Billy Sheehan on bass guitar, and he had Craig Bissonette on drums. You had a heavy-duty lineup that fizzled after 2 CDs. Totally fizzled. And I don't know how you can mess up a lineup like that. That was unbelievable lineup.
Probably Roth. Just trying to... You know, this is kind of a replacement. When Howard Stern went to satellite radio... K-Rock in New York City said, well, you know, we have this syndication. So the syndication deal was for the Howard Stern show, but a lot of these smaller market radio stations, like I think The Wizard in Burlington, used to carry the Howard Stern show in the morning because that was like their bread and butter. So K-Rock says, we got to replace Howard Stern with somebody that's going to bring in ratings. David Lee Roth.
How long did that last?
Like a month.
Uh-huh.
It did not last very long because he just... I never heard the show or anything, but I just can't imagine. I mean, Howard Stern is an egomaniac.
Oh, yeah.
But David Lee Roth is more of an egomaniac.
Puts him to shame.
Yeah, and I'm sure the whole show was just him talking about how great he was the whole time. But
yeah.
Which, I mean, Howard does. But... So, I mean, there you go. There's a replacement that didn't work out.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy.
David Lee Roth replacing Howard Stern.
Yeah. The next one I've got on my list, this one is, I put this in a category of its own. Oh, by the way, Van Halen then replaced Sammy Hagar after a while with a guy, Rick Sharon.
Yep.
And I don't even remember, what was he from, Warrant? I can't remember where Rick Sharon was from.
I think so.
And Rick Sharon sounded just like Sammy Hagar.
That wasn't that Right Here, Right Now song, was it?
No. That was
that
after that. That was Hagar. Right Now was a good song. I like that one.
It was a great song.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge Van Halen fan, but that song I really do like.
Mm-hmm.
The shredding thing isn't my favorite thing for guitar.
It's mine.
Right. Well, but the thing is I was talking to somebody about like really innovative guitar players and that really changed the course of how people play guitar. And you'd probably go back to like Les Paul early on, and then like maybe Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, and then in the 60s you probably had Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton,
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah. And then in the 80s you had Van Halen, and there really hasn't... Maybe Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, because he did something really different with guitar. But nobody's really innovated on the guitar since Van Halen and maybe Tom Morello. Yeah. Like Van Halen got that tapping thing down, which is those really fast notes that he plays. He doesn't play with a pick. He's like tapping right next to his fingers. And guitar has kind of fizzled. As far as
it's funny that Eddie Van Halen actually didn't invent that style. He just popularized it.
Frank Zappa used to do it.
Yeah, Zappa was doing it. Gary Moore was doing it. Joe Satriani was doing it. They were all doing it before Eddie Van Halen. He just popularized it. He happened to get in at a time when disco was dying, and he and Van Halen helped destroy the rest of what was left of it. Thank goodness for that.
Good for them.
Yes. I remember the first Van Halen album I ever heard. I said, my gosh, save us
Finally.
from this, So he popularized it. Although I have to admit, if I was to pick top 10 guitar players, Eddie would not be in the top 5.
He wouldn't be for me either.
No,
but he's got to be in the top 10.
I'll tell you what, we'll do a show.
Stevie Ray Vaughan would be though.
We'll do a show about that. We'll pick the top guitar players of all time.
Okay.
How about you people out there? I can't hear you. Are you out there?
Number 1 guitar player of all time, Tiny Tim.
Yes, very tiny. Next on my list of who's who.
It's too bad he never plugged in that ukulele and got some distortion going.
Yeah, put it into a Morley power wah. The next on my list is Steve Perry of Journey is replaced by...
Oh, yeah.
Who cares? Steve Perry was a head job, a head case of the worst kind.
Sure.
He just couldn't get it through his head that he had it all, and he came out with a statement one time saying, I never felt like I was part of the band, and I never felt like this, and I never felt like this. And the other guys in the band are going, you made all this money, you wrote all these songs with us, we welcomed you, what is your problem here? And finally they got sick of him, and they just canned him. I don't know. They replaced him by a young man from the Philippines, and that poor young man has been the victim of a lot of racist comments. And the kid is good. I don't know his name though.
I don't either, but he sounds a lot like Steve Perry.
Yeah.
Which, I think he's one of the few where if you were to close your eyes, I don't know if you could tell the difference between him and Perry. But that's where getting into replacing your singer's tough, because Perry had a very unique voice, and not many people can. Those notes are really high, those Journey notes.
Yeah, that's right. And that was like when AC/DC was auditioning for Bon Scott, the first one they chose, which was on a show of ours earlier called Biggest Blunders of Rock and Roll. They chose the singer for Crocus.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I'm going to stay with this band. We're going to make it. And they made 2 albums, 3 albums, and that was the end of it. And they ended up with Brian Johnson. So yeah, that was a case where Steve Perry. I didn't even put this in any category because I don't know who replaced him. I sort of know the newest guy that replaced him, but Steve Perry was nothing but a head case.
I think they're still touring pretty successfully, though.
Yes, I think they are.
I never care. I don't know.
I was not a big Journey fan. They had a couple of songs I liked.
Yeah.
They're more popular hit songs I didn't care for, but they made a couple of good songs.
Oh, sure.
A few good ones anyway.
They done a few.
Here's a good one for you.
Okay.
Ronnie James Dio replaces Ozzy Osbourne.
No.
Yeah.
In Black Sabbath?
Yeah, 1980.
How long did that last for?
3 albums.
3 albums? How do I not know this?
Todd, you were 2 years old.
Oh, okay.
Well, you should know these things.
There it is. My parents weren't big Black Sabbath listeners.
My son's parent was. Me.
Yeah, your son's parent.
In 1980 rolled around, and I'm sitting in my apartment at the time in Springfield, Vermont, and I'm listening to WHDM out of Claremont, New Hampshire, now known as Q106. They changed it to WHDQ,
yep.
Which is, by the way, one of my favorite radio stations because they played new and classic rock.
Yep.
So I'm listening, and I'm going, wait a minute, that's Ronnie James Dio. I said, but that's not Black Sabbath that I know. So I called the radio station and said, oh, that's Black Sabbath with Ronnie James Dio. I said, when did that happen? They said, 6 months ago.
Huh.
And in that category, I don't know where did I put that?
Did they do it because Ozzy went solo, or did they do it because Ozzy was a pain in the butt to work with?
Yeah, they kicked him out.
Yeah, okay.
They canned him in 1978.
Okay.
After 10 years of putting up with Ozzy, they canned him, and they latched on to Ronnie James Dio.
I always thought he had his stuff together.
Yes, bottles of hard liquor all over. When Sharon found him, the place was she couldn't walk through it without kicking over empty liquor bottles.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Ozzy was that bad. And so anyways, they hired Ronnie James Dio. And I put it in the category of the good and the ugly, because Ronnie Dio was not a nice-looking guy and Ozzy was really ugly. But as far as a voice was concerned, as far as the actual talent, Ronnie was far, far, far superior a singer, in my opinion.
I believe it. Ozzy Osbourne's got a good voice, but he's very monotone.
Yes, he is.
He kind of just rides in that one octave. But it's an iconic voice. It's like, love it or hate it. It's like Bob Dylan. You hear Ozzy's voice, you know it's Ozzy.
Yeah, Brian Johnson. You know it's him.
You do. Yep. And that's when it's tough to. That's when. What's your opinion? Do you just Black Sabbath is an iconic band, but you replace the singer? Do you still call it Black Sabbath, or do you just come up with some new name?
A good point. After Ronnie James Dio was canned in 1983, 83, somewhere around there, he was replaced by Ian Gillan of Deep Purple.
Really?
For one album. And believe me, that was ugly. That was very ugly. Even Ian Gillan couldn't figure that one out.
It doesn't sound like a good fit.
It was not. I have the one album that they did. It was called Born Again, and Ian Gillan said I could not figure out what my role in this band was because they were a drug-taking black leather band, and Deep Purple was a blue jeans wearing drinking band.
Right.
Totally different. He says I was on stage reading lyrics and singing lyrics I didn't have any idea what they meant. and
neither did Ozzy, so that's all good.
Yeah, but Ozzy was messed up. Ian couldn't figure this out, so that was a real ugly move on the part of Black Sabbath. Speaking of Black Sabbath, I'm going to go in. I've got more of them. They then replaced Ian Gillan in they did it. Tony Iommi got Glenn Hughes from Deep Purple, their bass guitar player, to sing on one album. And then they replaced him, I believe it was in 87 or 88, somewhere around there. I'll have to look it up. But they replaced Ian Gillan with Tony Martin.
Who's that, a hockey player?
Tony Martin. When I first heard him, I said, oh, they got Ronnie Dio back in the band. He sounded almost exactly like Ronnie Dio. And it wasn't until later Black Sabbath albums that you could tell the difference between the two of them. Tony Martin had a very good voice. Very fine voice. That was what I would call a confusing move. I didn't understand that one at all. And then and on tour, Black Sabbath was even more messed up. They had Ray Gillan, Ian's brother, on tour. Never did an album with him. And they even had Rob Halford on tour.
Really?
Yeah. And that whole band was been very confusing over the years.
Ozzy's back with them now, though, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what planet Ozzy's on what given day. There's a guy that's 67 years old and has no right to be alive.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't, but he is.
Sharon.
Yeah, he's alive. Keith Richards is alive.
Then you got guys like Gary Moore died at the age of 57 of a heart attack. And Ronnie Dio died at 67 of stomach cancer.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Now.
So the Black Sabbath thing went full circle when in 1998 they did the reunion tour and Ozzy came back.
Yeah.
And I heard that CD and I said I'm not buying this one. It wasn't that good.
Yeah, my friend went and saw them at. It very well could have been Lollapalooza in '98, and I said, "How was it?" And he says, "Let's put it this way: I don't like wearing earplugs. Because if you wear earplugs, it changes the sound of the music.
Yes, it does.
If you're in an outside concert, especially if you're in an inside concert, sometimes it makes it sound better because it's not just so loud. Anyway, he says, I hate wearing earplugs. They were selling earplugs for like $10 a pair at the Black Sabbath concert. He said they were so loud, I gladly bought a pair of earplugs for $10. He said it was just, and it was an outdoor show. He said they were just so incredibly loud. I don't even know if he thought it was good. That's all he told me. It was so loud, my ears are bleeding.
Yeah,
I needed, so I don't know.
Yeah, they were. I recently went to a Kenny Wayne Shepherd concert, and they were selling the cheap earplugs for like $2.
Yeah,
you didn't need them. I was in the third row, and you didn't need them.
That's the way, in my opinion, that's the way a concert should be. The louder you are, I don't know if you're just compensating for something, but...
Yeah, either that or they think the audience must like it. I know that when I saw Within Temptation and Amaranth, it was like being crushed. The sound was so loud, it was just like being crushed.
I don't enjoy
And I didn't enjoy that either. Who's next on your list? I have a few more, but go ahead. You've got a couple more, I know.
I kind of feel like I forgot.
Okay.
But I could go to one in the 90s, just out of... and I don't know their names, but the Gin Blossoms.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if this is necessarily controversial, but their lead singer is that they got famous with. It's not their original lead singer.
Who was it?
I don't know. But here's the story about it. Their hits, Found Out About You, Allison Road, were all written by the original lead singer, but he was an alcoholic, and they fired him from the group and replaced this new guy who sang all the songs on the album and had the hits for it. The guy ended up getting really depressed and committing suicide after because he wrote all those songs and didn't get any credit for it. But yeah, so when I see the Gin Blossoms, and Scotty is the guitarist for the Gin Blossoms, who I actually stay in contact with once in a while. He's not the original guitarist. They fired their other guitarist after that first album and hired him. So I always pick on him and tell him that he's not a real Gin Blossom, that he's actually a vodka and tonic.
That one was so good, even our engineer in the back is laughing at that one.
I haven't talked to him in a while, so I don't know if that's controversial, but I think it's kind of a sad story. I mean, the guy wrote, because the Gin Blossoms put another album out and had maybe one hit, but all of their big hits from their first album was written by the original guy that started the band and ended up getting kicked out of the band because he couldn't handle his liquor, I guess. And I think that happens quite a bit, actually.
Yeah. I know that, I don't even have them on the list, but I'll go real quick here. Rush. La Canadian Band. And they're not French at all. They're very, very English.
Rush.
You don't ever want to tell someone from Ontario that they're a Frenchie. It will get you killed.
Yeah,
Believe
probably,
me.
Yeah.
They had a drummer by the name of John Rutsey.
Yeah.
And they replaced him after one album because he was a diabetic and he was such a heavy drinker. They said, you'll be dead in 2 years if we take you on the road. So they fired him.
Good combination.
And they replaced him with Neil Peart.
Yeah, well, that was a good move.
John Rutsey did live to the age of 56. And then he did sober up, but he died at the age of 56 from complications of diabetes. But he did live a halfway decent life.
Oh, I got mine. This is the one I wanted to talk about.
Okay, good.
All right, and I'd be anxious to... Okay, Pink Floyd.
Okay. Now we're getting somewhere.
Pink Floyd, absolutely. They hate each other. David Gilmour, Roger Waters, not big fans of each other.
No.
However, when they broke up, Roger Waters... He retained... I'm trying to remember this right now. I'm going to mess it up. But anyway, Pink Floyd was able to keep their name, and I believe they had to sue Roger Waters for the name, but they were able to keep the name and tour as Pink Floyd. But Roger Waters wrote a lot of their hits. So who would you rather go see? And I'll tell you my answer, because this is really tricky. But Roger Waters would still go out, and he retained all the rights to The Wall. And he still goes out to this day and performs the entire Wall album by himself. And in recent years, I think even last year, David Gilmour made a guest appearance. Because that wasn't Roger Waters singing. It was David Gilmour singing almost all of the Pink Floyd stuff.
My favorite Pink Floyd song is off that album, Run Like Hell.
Yeah.
That's my favorite song of theirs of all time.
I love Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
And I never got to see him.
I got to see Brit Floyd, and they were good.
Yeah, I know.
The English version is good. The Australian version is not. But if you get a chance to go see Brit Floyd, go see them. They're well worth it.
But Gilmour replaced Syd Barrett.
Yes, I heard about that.
Back in the day. And that was a little controversial because Pink Floyd, before they were known as the... they weren't really considered psychedelic, were they?
They were more like concept.
Concept, yeah. They were on a whole other plane.
Or even prog. Progressive?
Progressive rock, yeah. That's
kind of like Yes.
That's fair, yeah. That makes
Emerson,
more
Lake
sense.
and Palmer, sort of like that sort of stuff, you know.
So Syd Barrett kind of started the group with Waters and Nick Mason, maybe. Yeah. And their earlier stuff was psychedelic. Like Syd Barrett, basically...
Dark Side of the Moon.
Oh, no, this is pre-Dark Side of the Moon.
Before that even, yeah.
Yeah, Dark Side of the Moon was David Gilmour. Sid Barrett kind of like, he wasn't on an acid trip, he was an acid trip.
Oh, okay. Well,
Like-
that makes the perfect sense to me.
So it was controversial when they kicked him out, but they kicked him out for sort of the same reason, because he went bonkers. Like, he literally went insane and had a mental breakdown. And so they kind of snuck Gilmour into the band, where he was like kind of coming in and playing like kind of lead guitar along with it, because Barrett wasn't really holding together on the stage well, and then they just stopped picking him up for gigs.
Mm-hmm.
And then they put out, I believe Wish You Were Here was before Dark Side of the Moon, which was with Gilmour. Who would you rather go see, though? Would you rather go see Pink Floyd that had David Gilmour, or would you rather go see Roger Waters, who does all the Pink Floyd hits?
Probably most people would say the one that does all the hits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm torn between that, because David Gilmour is one of my favorite guitarists of all time. But I like the Pink Floyd era with Roger Waters. I don't like the Pink Floyd stuff from the 90s. And after Waters left the band or got kicked out or whatever, I like Momentary Lapse of Reason and the Division Bell and all that stuff. To me, that's not Pink Floyd, even though it's David Gilmour, just, you know. So I don't know. I guess I'd have to see both.
Yeah.
I'd have to see Waters do the hits, but man, David Gilmour is probably one of my favorite guitarists.
Yeah.
So that's a little controversial.
Yeah, that's what I liked about Brit Floyd. They just combined everything.
Yeah, they can do that because they're a tribute band. But yeah, Sid Barrett was, I mean, because Pink Floyd was a pretty popular thing in the UK when they kicked out Sid Barrett, and that made a lot of people really mad. But then they completely changed the style of the music.
Yeah,
After
that
Barrett
sometimes
left.
happens.
Yeah. But I like Gilmour, man. The guy could play one note for 4 hours, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how he does it.
I got a couple more.
Cool.
You're gonna like. You're gonna
I'm
like
tapped out, man.
You're gonna like this one.
Okay.
Iron Maiden.
Yes.
Their original singer was not Bruce Dickinson.
It wasn't.
Their original singer
Emily
was
Dickinson.
Paul Di'Anno, and he was replaced in 1981 for a pretty good coke addiction.
Really?
And hardly anybody ever heard of Paul Di'Anno. He did two albums with, two albums with,
Two, man.
two albums with Iron Maiden. And then they got Bruce Dickinson, and that's when they became really, really popular, is with Bruce Dickinson.
Huh.
Another one that I didn't even know about until recently, but Pantera, Phil Anselmo was not their original singer. It was a guy named Terry Glaze.
Really?
And I never even heard of him.
Me either.
Never heard of him at all. But
Huh.
yeah, the one with Iron Maiden. I mean, that's one of your more popular '80s metal type bands. I thought they made some pretty good songs. My favorite by them is "Stranger in a Strange Land."
Yep.
I think that song is really raw. They have a very specific sort of. I know you probably know what they're using. It's almost like a phase shifter and a flanger together on that guitar that
Yep.
they're using on "Stranger in a Strange Land."
I think it probably is both of them together. I think you're right.
Yeah, I just always liked that song. I thought that was what was that? I can't remember the name of the album.
I can picture the cover, but
Yeah, it's got the typical Iron Maiden cover with the Iron Maiden on the front, the guy with
yeah,
no skin.
with no skin.
Eddie, they called him Eddie, I guess. His nickname.
did they?
His nickname was Eddie.
What about Dave Mustaine?
Oh.
Was he supposed to be in Metallica? Was he in Metallica?
Yeah, I had him on his list, and I sort of scratched him out
We
because
can't forget that nut job.
Dave Mustaine was replaced by Kirk Hammett,
Right.
because nobody could get along with Dave Mustaine. Another guy, nobody could get along with him. Later in his career, many, many, many years later, Dave Mustaine says, it would have been helpful if someone told me to go to an AA meeting.
Yeah. I could have been in Metallica, man. Yeah, but then weren't they like called Alcoholica?
Well, that's what they said that they should have been named, because
Right.
they were heavy, heavy drinkers too.
So that's pretty bad if you kick out a guy because you can't handle his alcoholism, but when you're all alcoholics too.
Evidently,
that's a dysfunctional band, and that's what makes for good music.
Evidently, Mustaine was that much worse that they couldn't take him.
Wow.
Evidently.
But he went on to do Megadeth, which...
It was a good band.
Yeah, I love that. Was it Sympathy for Destruction? Or the
Symphony for Destruction.
Yeah. It takes a mortal man.
The first speed metal album I ever bought was Peace Sells, But Who's Buying?
Yeah.
That was 1985 or 86, something like that. That was the first one. And they had an album before that one. I don't know if I've got that one. It's called Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good. I may have that somewhere. If you guys want to hear any of this music, stop by the station. I got all this metal stuff. I'm telling you. I'm surprised I have any head left with all the headbanging I've done.
Sure.
You know?
Was that Megadeth?
Yeah. Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good.
Dave Mustaine, though, like, he's a talented guy, but he's just a nut.
Yeah.
He's kind of like Ted Nugent. I can't really take them personally, but they're good guitarists.
Yep. I agree. Good guitarist, bad head cases.
Yeah, exactly. What happened to Ted Nugent, by the way?
Ted Nugent became so political that nobody even listens to him anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
He's even tried to play concerts at Native American. I don't know if you call them reservations or what, but he was going to be playing a couple of things for Native Americans, and they canceled on him at the last minute. They don't even want him around anymore. You know,
was he in a band or was he just Ted Nugent?
Okay.
Because I feel like he got kicked out of a band for some reason.
I've got 1 minute to go.
Okay, do it.
I've got 1 minute before I move on to one of a band that I've never talked about before. But Ted Nugent.
ABBA.
Yeah, right. I make jokes about ABBA. Ted Nugent in 1968 was in a band called the Amboy Dukes.
Okay.
And they did a song called Journey to the Center of Your Mind.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even know what it means because he didn't write the lyrics. But he was a guitar player.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if it was Ted Nugent and the Amboy Dukes or just the Amboy Dukes, but right after that, that's when he sort of branched out on his own.
Huh.
But if you ever wanted to dig into your archives, I don't have that song. I was a junior in high school when that came out, 1968.
Was he in the Damn Yankees too?
Yeah, he was in that one. That was later on.
That was like a super group, right?
Yeah. It tried to be.
Yeah. Super group.
So the last one on my list is a band I've never talked about before, and you'll never hear me talk about them again. But in 2005, Tarja Turunen of Nightwish was replaced by Annette Olson. I would put that in the category of bad. Very, very bad. Yeah, and here's why. Like here's why. You have a young singer by the name of Tarja Turunen, who I guess was becoming a pain in the butt. She was demanding too much money. She wasn't actually traveling with the band, and she wasn't showing up for practices.
She was getting diva-ish.
Yes. She got married to this guy in Argentina, and evidently the band had just had enough of her, and they replaced her with Annette Olson. And on the surface, Annette Olson, who, by the way, is from Sweden, is not a bad singer, but she's not Nightwish. She's just too lightweight. Mm-hmm. She had this very popish type of voice. And at first when you heard, you said, well, it's okay. And then when she tried to sing Tarja's songs, it was like, oh my gosh, this just doesn't fit it, So, and believe it or not, she lasted a good 7 years, 8 years. And then nobody will really say what happens. There's a bunch of different stories as to what had happened. But all of a sudden, Annette was either kicked out or quit or something, or got sick. I don't know what it was. I heard that she had some medical issue.
They poisoned her, man.
Yeah. And by the way, Annette
put some arsenic in her soup.
And Annette is releasing is got her own record label, and she's doing solo. So along comes 2013, and they have a chance, and along comes two women, and they fill in for a couple of gigs, and they've actually had three different women finish up the Imaginarium tour in 2003. Three different women.
Really?
I don't know one of them's name, but one of them was Elise Reed, who was an incredibly beautiful and very talented singer. She could have fit in good. And the other one, of course, was Miss Floor Jansen, who is still in the band, and I'm telling you, this was a good move.
That was a good move.
Getting her in that band was a good way. And 6'1", you're not going to move her out.
She's taller than the rest of the band. Huh?
Just about. There's no doubt in my mind she could kick our butts and not even think twice about it. I met Nightwish, by the way, a very fine bunch of people, and seeing them perform, there was a couple of people that I know that said, I'll always love Tadia better, her voice this and this and this. And when they saw Annette perform, they said, I have a new appreciation for this woman and the way and her voice and the way she sings.
You mean Floor?
Floor, that's right. Who did I say?
Annette.
No, not Annette.
You meant Floor.
Yeah, Floor.
Floor.
She's probably going to come down and kick my butt now.
She probably will. You better watch out.
They're over in Europe right now. Anyways, I'm going to go see them again next year.
Finland?
They're from Finland.
Yeah.
Interesting note about this band. They were all from Finland originally. They were a quintet. Nightwish started out as an acoustic act.
Really?
Yes, and then Thomas
Really?
Holopainen. I just love these Finnish names. Everything ends in O-N-E-N. Thomas Holopainen decided that Tardia's voice was way too strong. So he decided to go into a metal act, which took off. It took him a few albums, then as a matter of fact, for many years they only had one lineup change. Sami Vanska left, and right after he left, Marko Haitala came in, and the band took off. I mean, they got very, very popular. And so as time went on, they became more and more and more metal, and her voice, Tadia's voice, is extremely operatic, and she studied opera, and she sang opera for years. And if you listen to any of her new stuff since she's gone solo, you will definitely hear the operatic training. I think they call it, she's a lyrical soprano or something like that. And so anyways, now that they've got Miss Floor, they do some of the old songs, and Floor can hit those notes.
Nice.
And I'm going, wow, this is amazing. She did some old Nightwish songs exactly the way Tadia did them. So if you haven't checked out, by the way, Nightwish, right here. If you haven't checked this band out, you need to, because there are two people in this world: the people who love Nightwish, and everybody else doesn't count.
Everybody else doesn't count.
That's right. We'll probably receive many letter about that.
You might get 2 letters for this one.
Yes, I wanted to tell you that I think we may be getting a letter soon from a Mr. Richard Thayer of Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, who watches our show religiously.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
Right on, Richard. I didn't know we broadcast that far.
I didn't either. Well, what else are you going to do in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan? Except watch hockey and watch the wheat grow.
There you go. Must be the signal bounces off the AM signal somehow and just gets out there.
Could be. Todd, it's been fun. We're going to have to do this again.
Absolutely.
Anything to add?
No, I can't think of any others. I think we covered all the major ones.
Mm-hmm. I think so, and it's been fun. We always like doing the show, and for myself, Terry Difazio, and my partner, Todd Pronto, we'd like to wish you a good day. Happy trails.